Cheap laptops look like a good deal until you actually use one. And then very quickly you understand the problem. The screen is bad, the battery is weak, the keyboard feels cheap, the trackpad is annoying, the performance drop, and after a few months, the whole thing starts to feel slow, frustrating, and old. So this video is not really about price, it is about value. Because sometimes the cheapest laptops is actually the most expensive mistake. And that's exactly why I think the MacBook Neo it is the hero of this conversation. Not because it is the most powerful laptop in the world, but because it avoids almost everything that makes cheap laptop feel bad. And for a lot of people, that matters more than the raw specs. So let's talk about the real problem with cheap laptops. The biggest problem with cheap laptops, not they are affordable. The problem is where the compromises happens. Because on paper, a cheap laptop can look fine. Maybe it says 16 gig of RAM, maybe it says SSD, maybe it says Full HD, maybe the processor name sounds modern, and if you only look at the spec sheet, it can feel like a smart buy. But the real experience of a laptop is not only about number. It is about the thing that you feel every day. The display quality, the battery life, the keyboard, the trackpad, the fan noise, and the build quality, how fast it wakes up, how stable it feels after a month of use. And this is exactly where cheap laptops fail. They save money on areas that shape your daily experience the most. So yes, maybe the laptop is cheap when you bought it, but if it makes your life harder every single day, was it really a good deal? And this is where many people buy the wrong laptop. They shop for a spec sheet, but they live with the experience. A cheap laptop usually does not feel terrible at the day one, and that's what makes the trap so easy. At first, it feels acceptable. You open Chrome, you watch YouTube, you type some document, you think, okay, this is fine. But then small problems start to appear. The battery is not as good as you expected, the screen look washed out, the speakers are weak, the laptop become hot too easy, and the keyboard feels hollow, and the trackpad does not feel smooth. And you open more tabs and suddenly everything feels heavier. You join a video call and now the fan is loud. A few months later, it feels older than it should. And that's the real issue with cheap laptops. They age faster, not always because the processor is terrible, but because the whole experience was built around cutting corners. And that's why I think a cheap laptop can cost you more on frustration, more on time, and even more when you come to replace it sooner. Now this is where the MacBook Neo become very important, because the MacBook Neo represents the opposite idea. It is not exciting because it is cheap. It is exciting because it gets the fundamentals right. And honestly, that's what most people actually need from a laptop. A good screen, a good battery life, a solid keyboard, a good trackpad, quiet performance, and a strong build quality, and a laptop that feels reliable every day. That's why the MacBook Neo is the hero in this story. It is a laptop that reminds us that a good computer is not only about raw power, it is about how a laptop feels to live with. And this is where many cheap laptops completely lose. Because even if they look like a better value at first, they often fail at the exact things that make a laptop enjoyable to use. The MacBook Neo wins because it feels complete. It feels thought through. It feels like a product made to be used every day, not on a website. And for most people, that difference is more important than having the most powerful chip or having the lowest price possible. Let's be honest about how most people use a laptop. Writing, watching videos, emails, Zoom calls, browsing, maybe light editing, and maybe light creative work. That's it. Most people are not doing stream 3D work. Most people are not exporting large projects all day. Most people just need a laptop that feels smooth, lasts long, and doesn't annoy them. A cheap laptop can technically do the job, but the question is not only can it do the job, the real question is how does it feel while doing it? Because if the answer is slow, noisy, hot, and frustrating, then the low price stops being impressive. I think this is the most important part of the whole video. Cheap laptops are often sold as a smart financial decision, but many of them are actually false economy. You spend less money upfront, but you get less comfort, less reliability, less performance over time, and sometimes a shorter life. So do you really save? If your laptop feels painful after 6 months, if the battery gets weak too fast, if the screen makes everything look bad, if the keyboard makes the writing less enjoyable, then the price was not the whole story. And that's why I would rather buy the MacBook Neo than chase the cheapest laptop possible. Because I would rather buy a machine that feels good every day than save money on something that I will hate using. That to me, it is the smartest kind of value. Now to be fair, not every cheap laptop is useless. Some people really need the lowest possible price. Some people only need the basic machine. And if your budget is extremely tight, then of course price matters. But even then, I think the smart move is to avoid the cheapest new laptop and try to find the overall experience for your money. And that's the key idea here. Don't buy based on the price alone, buy based on how the laptop will feel in real life. Because a laptop is not a product you own. It is something you interact with every day. And daily frustration adds up very fast. And I think a lot of people buy the cheapest laptop because they want to feel responsible. They want to feel like they are saving money. And that makes sense. But sometimes trying to save money on the short term create a worse deal in the long term. And that's the trap. Cheap laptops often look smart on the store, but they feel dumb after a few months. The MacBook Neo, on the other hand, feels smarter over time, not because it is perfect, but it is respects the user experience. And that's why it becomes the hero of this video. It shows what happens if the basics done properly. So the problem with cheap laptops, not they are cheap, it is that too many of them cut costs on the exact places that matters the most. And once that happens, the low price stop being a great deal and start to become a bad experience. If you enjoy this video, subscribe, because next, I want to talk on the other side of the conversation. What actually makes a laptop worth buying in 2026? And that one, it might save you from making a very expensive mistake.